Today we're going to focus on factoring trinomials, which is typically the most common type of factoring. A trinomial means that we have three terms. A trinomial typically starts with the variable squared. Now you can still have a trinomial and have it cubed or have it to the fourth, but in general, your trinomial starts like with x squared or a squared or y squared. So you're typically dealing with a variable squared. Now you can have it other ways, but typically. The first things that we're going to do with our factoring is we're going to factor a trinomial in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. Now what I want you to notice about this x squared plus bx plus c is that there is a 1. Whoops. There is a 1 in front of that x squared. So this trinomial right here that we're going to factor, there's a 1 right there. And the method and the steps that we take when we are factoring a trinomial that has a 1 in front of the x squared are different than the steps we'll take when we have a number in front of that. Okay? So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So what we're going to do in order to factor this trinomial is we have to identify a product and we have to identify a sum. We have to identify a product and we have to identify the sum. Now, our product is this C value right there. That is our product. Okay, so our product for this one is 12. My sum for this one is my B value. Okay? So that sum is 8. So what I'm looking for, I am looking for two numbers multiplied together that give me 12 and added together give me 8. Okay? Two numbers multiplied together that give me 12 and added together give me 8. Good. You're absolutely right. So the numbers are 6 and 2. Okay? Because 6 times 2 is 12 and 6 plus 2 is 8. Now, before we do anything with that, I want you to look at this product right here. So this product is positive. How do I get a positive product? What kind of numbers do I have to multiply together if I've got a positive product? Say that again. Okay, two positive numbers. Or what? Or two negative numbers. Okay? So if you end up with a positive product, you know that your two numbers have got to be positive or your two numbers have got to be negative. Now, if I have a positive product and a positive sum, what does that tell me? They're both positive. Okay? So because I have a positive product and a positive sum, I can definitively say that both numbers are positive. Okay? So these are little tricks that you want to kind of pay attention to as we go through this. Now, I've got my numbers as 6 and 2, so I'm basically done, and this is because I've got a 1 in front of this. If I didn't have a 1 in front of this, I would have to have more steps. But because I have a 1 in front of that x squared, once I've got my numbers, I'm done. So I've got x plus 6 times x plus 2. Now, I can write that as x plus 2 times x plus 6. It doesn't matter. The order doesn't matter. What matters is that I've got the sign correct. If I don't have the correct sign with the correct number, then that will matter. Okay? Now I'm going to erase the bottom part right here. Is it okay if I erase that? Okay. Now, to check this, I would FOIL. I would FOIL this to check it. So I have x times x is x squared. X times 6 is 6x. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 6 is 12. So I have x squared plus 8x plus 12. Okay? Now I can FOIL it to check it, but I want you to understand this is my answer right there. That's my answer. Okay? Now, can I erase the red? Question? No. Okay. Okay, so now we're looking at our next one. Okay, I'm looking at x squared minus 10x plus 24. My product for this one is 24. Because my product is positive, that means I'm looking for both numbers positive or both numbers negative. Okay? Because I have a positive product, my numbers have to be both positive or they have to be both negative. Okay, what is my sum here? Negative 10. Okay, so this is my product. My sum, I'm sorry, negative 10 and this is my sum. C is my product. B is my sum. Okay, so my sum is negative. So what does that tell me? Since my sum is negative, both of the numbers are negative. Okay? So when I have a positive product and a negative sum, that means both numbers are negative. When I have a positive product and a positive sum, that means both numbers are positive. Okay. What two numbers multiplied together give me 24, added together give me negative 10? Okay, I've got 6 and 4. 6 plus 4 gives me positive 10. Negative 6 and negative 4. Good. So I have x minus 6 and x minus 4. And this is my final answer right here. Can I go to the next screen? Can I go to the next screen? Okay. First thing I want you to do, identify my sum and identify my product. Okay? Identify my sum and identify my product. Okay? What is my product? What is my product? Negative 30. Okay, always my C value. That's going to be my product. What's my sum? Positive 7. Now, I want us to look right here. I have a product that's negative. When I have a negative product, what is the only way to get a negative product? Okay, one positive number and what? One negative number. Now, I have a positive sum. What that means, because I have a positive sum, my number with the greater absolute value has got to be what? Positive. Okay, because when I have one positive number and one negative number, when I have one positive number and one negative number, I have to subtract their absolute values, and I take the sign of the number with the higher absolute value. So if I've got a negative product and a positive sum, I'm dealing with one positive number and one negative number. Because my sum is positive, my number with the greater absolute value is positive. Okay? Anybody have the two numbers? Good. Negative 10 and positive 3. And it is the other way around. Thank you very much. I did that last class too. 10 times negative 3. Thank you for catching that. So 10 times negative 3 is negative 30. 10 plus negative 3 is positive 7. Because I have a 1 right here, all I have to do is x plus 10, x minus 3. Is it okay if I wrote x minus 3 times x plus 10? Yes, that's completely fine. Just make sure your positive and your negatives are in the right place. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do this one. 2 minutes to do this one. What are my numbers? Good. Negative 9 and positive 8. Good. Okay, so what happens here is I've got a product that's negative 72. I have a sum that's negative 1. I got the product from my C value. I got the sum from my B value. Okay, so I'm looking for two numbers multiplied together that give me negative 72. Added together give me negative 1. That's one positive and one negative. My greater absolute value has got to be negative. Okay? So because I have a 1 in front of my n squared, I just have to write this down. So I would have, whoops, I'm about to write x. So I would have n minus 9 and n plus 8. Okay? Can I go to the next screen? Okay, now we're looking at something different. Okay? Now we're looking at something different. We are no longer dealing with a trinomial that has a value of 1 in the front. Okay? We have them as ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay? So we have a number in front of the variable. That's what we're dealing with now. We have a number in front of the variable of x squared. So, we can't use the same method as we did previously. It's similar, but it's not exactly the same. What we have to do in order to solve this is we have to identify our sum and our product. Okay? Our sum stays the same. Okay, so I'm going to identify my sum and my product. Okay? My sum is still my B value. Okay? My sum is still my B value. My product is A times C. Okay? That's my product. So in my first example right here, my product is going to be 2 times 5. I have to multiply the number in front of my x squared times my C value. That's how I get my product. So what is my product here? 10. Because I've got to multiply 2 times 5. Okay? My sum stays the same. My sum is still my B value. So what's my sum here? 11. Okay. My second step is to find 2 numbers that multiply together to get my product. And add to get my sum. Okay, so multiplied together, they give me my product, and they add together to get me my sum. So I am dealing with a product that's positive. Because my product is positive, my numbers are both positive or both negative. Okay? Because my sum is positive, that means both numbers are positive. Okay, so what 2 numbers multiplied together give me 10, added together give me 11? 1 and 10. Okay, so my numbers are 1 and 10. Now this step right here, this is the step that students get lost. This is the step that students get lost. With my numbers from number 2, okay, with numbers from step 2, split the B value. Okay? So we are going to split the B value. So that means I am going to take 11x and I'm going to write 10x plus 1x. Okay, so all I've done here is I've split the B value. I've got 11x. I split that to 10x plus 1x. Is 10x plus 1x still 11x? Yes, so I haven't changed the value. What I've done is I've split it. I've broken it down more. So if you get that third step, you're good. The fourth step is to then factor by grouping. That's my last step because we know how to factor by grouping. Okay? What goes into 2x squared and 10x? What can I pull out of that? 2 and? Okay, so then I'm left with x plus 5. Okay? So now what do I pull out of the second 2? Good. I pull out 1. A lot of times students will say nothing. They'll say, Alicia, there's nothing to pull out. When it appears that there's nothing to pull out, you're pulling out a 1. Because 1 times x is 1x, and 1 times 5 is 5. So you're pulling out a 1. You're not pulling out a 0. Okay, now my final answer here is 2x plus 1 times x plus 5. And this right here is my final answer. Right there. Okay, now we're going to do it again, but I need to erase my steps. Can I erase my steps? Have you guys got the steps written down? Okay, I'm erasing steps. So, first thing that we're going to do is we are going to identify my sum, and we're going to identify my product. I'm going to identify my sum and my product. My sum is always my B value. Always, right there. Always. Okay? It's the number in front of your linear term, or your x to the first power. Okay? My product is my first number times my last. My A value times my C value. So what is 10 times 3? 30. Okay? So I have a positive product. Positive product. That means both numbers are positive or both numbers are negative. I have a negative sum. So what does that tell me? Okay, they're both positive or both negative because I have a positive product. So since my sum is negative, what does that tell you? They're both negative. Okay, so both of my numbers are negative. Both of my numbers are negative. What are my two numbers? What multiplied together gives me 30? Good. Multiplied together give me 30. Added together give me negative 17. And you're correct. Negative 15 and negative 2. Okay? Now, what we do here is we split it. And that right there, that step, splitting that term is where students get confused. So I have 10x squared minus 15x minus 2x plus 3. If you remember to split that term, you will remember how to do it the rest of the way. Splitting that term is where students get lost. Okay? My first two, I can take a 5x out. 5x times 2x minus 3. When I have a negative right here, that is a good indication that you're going to have to take a negative number out. Okay? So I'm actually taking out a negative 1. Negative 1. So my final answer is 5x minus 1 and 2x minus 3. Question? Yeah.
How did you get the negative 3 on the top where the negative 1 is?
Okay. Negative 1 times 2x gives me negative 2x.
Oh, yeah.
Negative 1 times negative 3 gives me positive 3. So that's how I have to pull that negative 3 out. Okay? Because remember, this negative 1 is being distributed to the 2x and the negative 3. And that's what will give me the positive 3. Because a negative and a negative is a positive. So that's why. If I just took the negative 2 out of the 2x, it wouldn't be distributed. And you have to distribute it. Okay? Can I go to the next screen? Okay. I'm going to mostly let you do this one by yourself. My product is what? What's my product? Negative 11 is my sum. You're good. Negative 60. Because my product is negative, what does that tell you about my two numbers? Good. One's positive and one negative. Okay, my sum is negative. So my number with greater absolute value is what? Good. My number with greater absolute value is negative. I'm going to give you 1 minute to finish this. this one might have been a little bit more difficult to find the numbers. When that happens, I want you to write down your product. Okay, your product's negative 60. And I want you to start writing down everything that equals negative, or that equals 60, really. And then you can decide which one's negative and which one's positive. Okay, 10 times 6 is 60. I could make one of them negative, but that's not going to give me anywhere near my sum. Okay, I could, I've got 5 and 12. Okay, that's not going to give it to me. 2 and 30. That's not going to work. It is even. It's even, so you know numbers like 2 and 4 will go into it. And 4 times 15 is what we're looking for. So you have to kind of go through those to think about, how do I find my numbers? So when you get stuck, start writing down all the factors. Because our sum is negative, our greater absolute value is going to be the one that's negative, and that's the 15. So my numbers here are 4 and negative 15. 4 and negative 15. So I'm going to split this term right here. So I have 6x squared plus 4x minus 15x minus 10. Whoever's got the music playing, if you could turn that off or down or whatever, because we can hear it. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to look at our first two terms. What comes out of both of those? Okay, 2x comes out of both. Okay, so I'm left with 3x plus 2. What comes out of the second one? 5 comes out, but I also need to take out a negative. Okay, I need to take out a negative. So I'm going to take, and whenever we've got a negative right here, that gives us the indication that we've got to take that out. Okay, so I've got negative 5, and that's going to be 3x plus 2, because negative 5 plus positive 2 gives me negative 10. Okay? Okay, so then our final answer here is 2x minus 5 and 3x plus 2. 2x minus 5 and 3x plus 2. Okay? Okay. Now, this last one, I am looking for a product of 36, because I have multiplied my A and my C together. I am looking for a sum of 6. So when I start looking for numbers that multiply together to give me 36, I'm looking at 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 9 and 4, 6 and 6, 1 and 36. Okay, what's happening? Do I have any numbers that I can multiply together to give me 36 and add together to give me 6? No, I don't have any. So what has happened here is this is not factorable. Another term that you might hear for that trinomial is that it's prime. Okay? You might hear that it's prime. Once I introduce that it's possible for a trinomial or for something not to be factorable, students then decide that everything's not factorable. Something being not factorable is very rare while you're in this class. Okay? So you're not going to get something that's not factorable that often. So don't, if you start putting everything down as not factorable, then you're probably making some mistakes. Okay? So it is possible that you can have a not factorable, but it doesn't happen that often. Okay, so most of the ones that you're going to be exposed to in this class are going to be factorable. The other term that you might write down or you might see in your answer key is called prime. So either one of those means that there's no sum in product. Or there is a sum in a product, but there's no two numbers that equal that sum in product. Okay, now, we talked a lot on Monday about the difference between solve, simplify, and factor. When we talked about solving, what was the number one thing we had to have when we solved? What did we have to have when we were solving? What had to be part of the equation? An equal sign. Good. Okay? So what I want you to look at here is I want you to look at this equation, because this equation right here has an equal sign. When we have an equal sign and the directions say solve, we are isolating the variables and we are solving them. We are trying to find out what x can equal. Okay? Now, what this is right here is this is standard form of a quadratic. Okay? Standard form of a quadratic. That means that I have ax squared first. My highest exponent comes first. My next term is my next lowest exponent. Okay? So I have x squared, then I have x to the first, and then I have a constant. If I am being asked to solve an equation, okay, I am finding values for my variable. Okay, I am finding values for my variable. That's what I'm doing. And here are the steps that I have to follow. So my first step that I have to follow when I'm finding values for my variable is I have to make sure my equation is equal to 0 and in standard form. Okay? Make sure my equation is equal to 0 and in standard form. Okay, that has to happen. So, is this one here equal to 0? X squared minus 11x minus 12 equals 0. Is it equal to 0? Yes. Is it in standard form? And that means I start with x squared, then I go to the x, and then I go to the constant. Is it in standard form? You've got to make sure that that's the case. Okay? That's your first step. My second step is to factor. Okay? That's my second step. So I am going to factor this problem right here. Now, my a value is 1, so that makes factoring a little bit simpler. Okay? I look for a product of negative 12. My sum is negative 11. Okay? So I am looking for two numbers multiplied together give me negative 12. Added together give me negative 11. Because my product is negative, that means one positive number and one negative number. One positive number and one negative number. Because my sum is negative, that means the number with higher absolute value is negative. That's what that means right there. Number with higher absolute value is negative. Okay, so what are my two numbers? Negative 12 and positive 1. Negative 12 and positive 1. Now, because my value here is positive 1, I can just write that down. So I've got x minus 12, x plus 1. Okay? X minus 12 times x plus 1 equals 0. So now my next step is to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to erase this. And I'm going to erase this so we can kind of look in on what we're doing. Okay, so now I've got x minus 12 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. X minus 12 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. So x is 12 and x is negative 1. Okay? So those are the solutions to this quadratic. Okay, can I go to the next screen? Is it okay if I go to the next screen? Okay. So we are going to do the same thing here. First thing I'm going to ask myself, is the equation set equal to 0 and in standard form? Okay? Is the equation set equal to 0 and in standard form? Okay, it is set equal to 0. Then I have my x squared, my x, and my constant. So I'm in good shape. Okay? My second step is to factor. Okay, now this is a trinomial that has a number in front of our x squared. So we've got to get our product and our sum. My product is 20 times negative 3. 20 times negative 3. So that is going to be negative 60. And my sum is 7. So I'm looking for two numbers. One is positive, one is negative. The one with the higher absolute value is positive because I have a positive sum. Now this is going to be one of those things where I probably need to write down some numbers that equal negative 60. Okay? So maybe positive 10 and negative 6. That's not going to work. Positive 15 and negative 4. That's not going to work. Positive 30 and negative 2. That's not going to work. What else equals 60? 12 and 5. So 12 times negative 5. Those are my two numbers, 12 and negative 5. So I'm going to split my middle term. 20x squared plus 12x minus 5x minus 3. I'm factoring by grouping. Okay? So I'm going to take a 4x out of the first two. I'm left with 5x plus 3. What am I going to take out of the second two? Yes, a negative 1. So then I'm left with 5x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so my factors are 4x minus 1, 5x plus 3. Okay, my next step, I set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Okay, so I have 4x minus 1 equals 0, 5x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so 4x equals 1, I divide both sides by 4. I get x equals 1/4. 5x equals -3. Divide both sides by 5. X equals -3/5. Okay? Okay, I have one more problem we're going to do before you leave. Is it okay for me to move off this screen? Okay? Okay, here we are. What is different about this one? Okay? So we've got 9a and we've got a plus 1 in parentheses.
It's not the thing yet.
It's not in standard form. What's it equal to?
4.
It's not equal to 0 either. Okay, so we've got to deal with all of that first. We've got to get this equal to 0. So the way that I deal with that is I'm going to distribute that 9a. So I've got 9a times a, that's 9a squared. 9a times 1 is 9a, and that is equal to 4. What do I do with the 4? Good. So I have 9a squared plus 9a minus 4 equals 0. Okay? Okay. Now, do I have it set equal to 0? Do I have it in standard form? Now what do I do? Factor. Okay, so my product is a times -4. So that's -36. My sum is +9. So I have two numbers. One's positive and one's negative. The reason we know one's positive and one's negative is because the product is negative. The only way we can get a negative product is to have one of each. My sum is positive, so the number with greater absolute value is positive. So I can start writing down things that equal -36. So I'm going to have 9 and 4, 18 and 2, 12 and what? 3. Good. Okay, 3. And there, is that it? Yeah, that's it. So 12 and 3. So then I have 9a squared plus 12a minus 3a minus 4. 3a comes out of the first two. What comes out of the second two? It's -1. Okay, sometimes that's tricky to see. Okay, so then I have 3a minus 1 times 3a plus 4. Okay, I'm going to erase some of this over here because I've got to set both of these equal to 0. Okay, so I have 3a minus 1 equals 0. 3a plus 4 equals 0. Okay, 3a equals 1. Divide both sides by 3. A equals 1/3. 3a equals -4. Divide both sides by 3. A is -4 over 3.